Let's talk a bunch of different topics.
How'd her career get there?
This is a podcast with Lauren Asghari.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for listening. Hit that like button, leave a positive comment, or hit subscribe to get alerted when new episodes drop. All of this will help keep the project going. Thank you for your support and enjoy the episode. This is the Lauren Asghari podcast, How'd Her Career Get There? And my guest today is Pattie Dash, who is the Executive Director of the National Kidney Foundation serving Maryland and Delaware. Welcome, Pattie.
Hi, Lauren. It's so great to be with you today. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
I am really excited for this. I've known full disclosure. I used to sit on the NKIF serving Maryland and Delaware board. So Pattie and I have worked closely together. So I know how efficient and wonderful she is in her role. So I'm looking forward to learning a little bit more about you and your background that I maybe don't know. So I also want to highlight for the audience that Pattie was recently named by the Daily Record as a top 100 woman. And also inducted into their Circle of Excellence, which means that you got named to it for 3 times, and you're in a very, very elite group of dynamic and fantastic women there. So I wanted to make sure that gave you your claps for that, and to say congratulations is quite an accomplishment. So
thank you, Lauren. You're too kind. I'm honored to receive this award and still just kind of pinch me. I just can't believe it. So thank you.
Well, it's well-deserved for sure. So let's give kind of a quick overview about what you're doing now, and then we'll kind of get in our time machine and go back to Pattie when she was younger. But give an overview of National Kidney Foundation and then your role there.
Sure. I've been working for the National Kidney Foundation now. June is going to be 9 years, and I can't even believe it. Prior to this, I worked the Girl Scouts of Central Maryland. And so working with the National Kidney Foundation as the executive director for the Maryland and Delaware market, it's really been eye-opening to me, particularly throwing in the pandemic, and how that impacts kidney patients. But, in general, our mission is pretty clear. We are revolutionizing the fight to save lives by eliminating preventable kidney disease and accelerating innovation for the dignity of patients' experiences, and trying really hard to dismantle the structural inequities in kidney care, dialysis, and transplantation. So our market currently, I'm very excited to share, is doing a ending CKD in disparities kind of event and or initiative, I should call it. So this is something we're doing in partnership with the DC market, who has done this for the state of Virginia, along with other states across the country. And we're doing work groups for different areas that range from clinical considerations in CKD and primary care to population health, to all kinds of different areas. And we're gleaning out where we need to go, that roadmap. And so it's going to culminate with a virtual summit on June 13th at 10 a.m. So anybody's welcome to join us and weigh in, patients, providers. We're just really trying to dig into what is needed to end those disparities in kidney disease. I don't think everyone always understands the impact of kidney disease on patients and the family. If you're a family member of someone who's on dialysis 3 days a week, 4 hours per, stint, the family is impacted too. So, but I'm really honored to be the executive director here and honored to work with not only my team and our board, but we have an esteemed medical advisory board, and most importantly, the community at large, the patients and the caregivers.
And for those, and a quick abbreviation for the audience in case they don't know, CKD, chronic kidney disease, right? Just confirm. Yep. Yep. And so for those that don't necessarily know, when they hear executive director, they may or may not know what that job entails. So give a quick overview, For those who are maybe not familiar with the not-for-profit or nonprofit world, when you hear executive director, where does that kind of fit in the roles and responsibilities and kind of the hierarchy there?
Sure. So each market runs their area. So being the executive director means that I have oversight and responsibilities for the Maryland and Delaware market, and I have a local team that executes all of the different programs and events that we are doing here. I report to the national office through a vice president, a regional vice president who's over the Northeast region, who then reports to a senior vice president who's over all of the field. And then that individual reports to the CEO, Kevin Longinio, who happens to be a kidney transplant recipient himself. So he gets it. He understands what patients go through because he's been there. So I find that to be very inspiring and very enriching to the mission that we're doing here.
So if anything is going on within Maryland and Delaware, Pattie is the person who is overseeing it. So
Yeah.
So let's jump in our time machine and go back to you when you were a younger girl. So tell the audience a little bit about your background, where you were born, how you grew up, only child, did you have siblings? What were your parents like? A little bit of context.
Sure. So I was born, my mom, let me just start with this because I always find it interesting. And I used to tell her, why did you move? But my mom and my dad lived in a lighthouse in Rhode Island. And so I was slated to be born in Rhode Island. But my mother was 8.5 months pregnant and said she didn't want to be in a lighthouse waiting to try to get to the land so she could, have me come into the world. My dad was in the Coast Guard. And so they came back to Baltimore County. And then later we moved to Baltimore City. It was my mom and my dad and my sister that were the only two children. And so my dad he was a police officer from Baltimore City. And at the time you had to live in the city to work in the city. So my dad moved us to Baltimore City when we were young. And then I kind of just, went to school and did my thing. And I was very kind of creative and wanting to do things more in the arts and such. But I wound up getting into the business program at Mergenthaler Vocational Technical High School. Say that again. We call it Mervo. And so that's where I took my journey through high school and later going on to college at, a local community college, Catonsville Community College, then on to University of Maryland, Baltimore County, even went to Howard Community College for a specific business course that I was interested in. But again, I felt I was more creative and I wanted to do something that I enjoyed. So I really wanted to be an owner of a floral shop. I wanted to do flowers and, do that for weddings and such. But my journey took me on to being an intern at Girl Scouts of Central Maryland. And I wound up staying there for 32 years before I came to the National Kidney Foundation. So, but I do flowers and other creative outlets on the side. And I really think that's probably the better course for me and the work that I'm doing because it means so much to me to make a difference in the community.
What do you remember as a kid that has carried with you that you've carried with you to today from your parents, and from them together or from them as individuals, but, a trait that they really instilled within you when you were younger that you really have and find very useful today, part of who you are?
Yeah. So my mom, as you probably remember, passed away 3 years ago. And so that in of itself has done some things to me to change. But I find myself really always reflecting back to how I did grow up. And my mom was the force in the house. My dad, he was kind of the pushover, like you could go to him and dad. But my mom really was big on responsibility and accountability. And she felt that if we wanted to do something, that we needed to demonstrate that and we needed to take our own accountability to that. So I think that's just really bled into my life all along is that you work hard to get what you want. And if you don't get what you want, it's because you didn't work hard. And so, or it didn't mean as much to you. So I think for my mom, it was really more of that accountability, responsibility, and being independent. Like my mom really wanted her girls to be independent and did not want us to rely on anyone, that we needed to take care of ourselves. So when I talk about my dad being a Baltimore City police officer and my dad as a Coast Guard, they're two different dads. My dad died when I was 14, and my mom remarried my stepfather, who is my dad. He like raised us. You know, he was with us before my dad passed as well. So, coming from a family where my mom was divorced, she was just like, girls, you don't need to rely on a man. You need to rely on yourself. And so that's that part of it. From my dad that passed, just love and compassion, and caring about people is kind of some of the traits I remember and recall fondly from him. He made my dresses for different things for school. I was a polka dancer, where our history's got a Polish background. So my dad made my polka outfit, my stepfather, who is my dad in all senses, again, he, as a police officer, he being the community piece, I think is where I got that really ingrained in me about, being present in the community, showing up and caring, and again, being responsible and doing what you say you're going to do.
And so when you carry that all through and you go to school and you end up getting your first job interning, did you get that job thinking like, okay, I'll do this? Because I would imagine, like most people, I mean, I won't even put an age on it, but certainly those early in their career, you're trying things out, right? Testing the waters a little bit, seeing what you like, what you don't like. When you took that first job, were you hooked into the nonprofit, not-for-profit world? Were you just kind of dabbling in it and then maybe wanted to explore other things? Or talk a little bit about how you got into that, why you took that first role, and then how it kind of propelled you into the work that you're doing now.
No, I did not even want to tell anyone that I was working for Girl Scouts. I just thought that was the strangest place to work. But in school, in high school, through the business program, you actually had to do an internship and you had to pick. And so my pick, when they aligned you, they did this little testing and stuff, was with a bank. And I thought, I am not wanting to get into the financial field. Like at 18 years old, I just couldn't even imagine it. So when I really looked at what Girl Scouts was, I thought, wow, at the core of who I am, giving back, being in the community, I thought I could try that for a little while. But honestly, Lauren, I was embarrassed to tell people I worked for Girl Scouts, and I was a Girl Scout only for a minute because I wanted to wear the beanie and stuff. But I was really into sports and played the flute, sang in the choir. And I just thought Girl Scouts was weird, it wasn't a thing for me. And so it was ironic to get that opportunity. And I will tell you, it was the most amazing experience for me. And I credit the women there that were not that men didn't work there. There was a few good men, but it was the women who helped me. I was 18 and they were all well established in their careers, from 30s on up. And my manager, Jean Von Ulrich, who passed away, I stayed friends with her when she left Girl Scouts years and years ago. She was just a fabulous leader. And I thought to myself, when I grow up, I want to be like her. And I certainly don't think I'm like her today in all ways, but I do think she's probably the one that really instilled into me, again, that accountability, responsibility, taking initiative. And Lauren, the thing she taught me the most is I would come to her with what is a problem or issue, but I always had solutions. And in my brain, I had solutions, but I was afraid, to just do it. So I'd go and I'd say, I need to talk about X. And she'd say, okay, tell me about it. And I would tell her. And then I said, but I was thinking that I could do this, that, or the other. And 9 times out of 10, I either walked out of there doing what I thought was one of my solutions, or she would help me see how maybe multiple solutions blended together was the solution. But she never told me what to do. And so later, and, as we got to be friends and stuff outside of Girl Scouts, she said to me, you are very unique as a young person being in the workforce in that you came to me with what was your issue, but you always had a solution, and your solutions were usually pretty spot on. You just need to believe in yourself more, So
Yeah.
build that confidence. So that's what I learned from her the most is that, follow your gut. Your gut is usually right,
Yep.
So,
Yep. I love that you said that. It's so funny. One of the thing, I don't want to call it a pet peeve when people don't do it, but I might call it a pet peeve actually. It frustrates me to no end when people come with a problem and not a solution. Doesn't matter to me if it's the right one. Doesn't matter if it's, doesn't maybe make sense, or to your point, most of the time, the people that have the problem are closest to the problem, and their ideas are usually very good in terms of moving towards a path to solve it. And I just find it so intellectually lazy to not come with some idea as at least a jumping off point. So I'm glad that I'm not on an island with that mentality. It sounds like you share some version of that camp.
And I share the pet peeve piece of it, because I feel like 9 times out of 10 for me, it was about I lacked the confidence at that time, and you didn't want to make a mistake. But then, as she was working with me, I would go and I would do it. And then my meetings turned into, hey, I ran into this issue, but this is how I handled it. And she was like, way to go, way to go. I mean, not to say that there couldn't have been some missteps, or maybe she might have, said, handle it. I would have handled it a different way, but that's a different level of a conversation. That's a level of, again, growth in that if I did something and she's like, well, I'm glad you handled it, just for the future, maybe think about, right? And she would give some input on that. So honestly, I miss that woman. She was just this amazing ball of fire. And ironically, she was a CFO. So
You weaved your way back to finance somehow after all.
yeah.
And I think you bring up also a really good, and her setting the example and from a leadership perspective. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. It sounds like you follow it also, but I think it's so important as leaders to give people the room to your point. What she did brilliantly is not just come with solutions, but giving you the room to fail and giving you, right. And also giving, the confidence piece, I feel like, especially for, I don't want to say especially for, I've never been a young man, so I don't know, but for young women, the confidence piece is usually most of the game. And once you start to kind of build that muscle of, okay, I can come with an idea, I might not be perfect, I make a mistake, people give permission and room to fail a little bit. I feel like then it's like anything. It's like you gain that muscle a little bit every time and confidence to do it the next time. Sounds like you share that type of viewpoint in terms of your leadership style.
We're learning that as an 18, 19, 20-year-old under her leadership. The brilliance of Girl Scouts in general was the fact that we had an opportunity to mold the future of girls in a variety of ways that we did program and such. And so, I would tell my team often, and I had a much larger team than I grew to manage. I pretty much every function, including HR, I did, except for finance. I just would not. I'd report to somebody but I would not do it. I don't know. Being behind a computer and crunching numbers all day just didn't seem exciting to me.
Yeah.
So, but, just kind of like when you grow a team too, there are so many things that happen in a day. When you talk about what is an executive director, being second in command there, or whatever the job is, you do everything. There are days that I cleaned a latrine at Girl Scouts, or shoveled snow. They wouldn't let me cut the grass because they knew I was a little dangerous on moving objects. But, but I would say to the team too, my famous thing was, what do you think? And again, learning that, what do you think you should do with this? And I'd say, unless there is bloodshed, it's really not that critical. Like you have a minute to think about it. and come up with what you think is the reasonable solution. And don't put me in a place where Patty said, because that would happen with some of my, managers. And I just tried to help them understand and coach them into, if you use me as that crutch, you're never going to gain credibility. You're not going to be seen as the leader that I know you are. And so hopefully that helped a lot of my direct employees at the time at Girl Scouts. And even here, it's like, make the mistake, go ahead and fail. So we're not going to call 911. There's no blood. Just
Right.
figure,
Right. I think about that, just to stay on this topic just for one more minute. I think about that a lot too, in terms of, if you say Patty said, it's like, as a leader, you, Patty, doing a good job of giving people, if they disagree with you, giving them room to disagree, so that when they walk out of the room, it's not because Patty said, it's because this is the business reason to do it. And maybe it was your idea, maybe it was theirs. That point's kind of irrelevant, but making sure that it's, I think as leaders, also giving people the opportunity to make sure that you're giving them the right to the option to disagree in a, I'm air quoting, safe space, right? Because some people can be intimidated by a hierarchy, or telling your boss that you don't see it the same way as they do.
Right. And if you decide to walk into the room and discuss something with your manager, and you don't give ideas and you don't give opinions, or you don't push back or disagree, then you really have to ask yourself, whose issue is that? Because, trust me, earlier in my career, I was timid, by nature. I'm not somebody that, I'm not that extrovert like some. I'm more of an introvert, and people don't believe that, but it's because, through taking the Myers-Briggs, I was kind of like at the very end falling off, like I just want to disappear into the wall, to where, while I'm still an introvert in gut, I'm more up on that other side, to where I'm able to do what I need to do in the public and turn on, that persona that I need to, speak to thousands or 20 or whatever it is. But, you just grow through this, and you have to learn your style and the people you work with style, and figure out what works best. And, again, when you walk away and you didn't get what you want, you have to ask yourself why.
Mm-hmm. Yep. What's something that what advice would you give your younger self early in the workforce?
Oh boy. As you get to be more experienced, and you grow, I have to think about that 20-year-old. Yes, I was 18 when I started, but the things that resonate most with me is just be yourself. Don't try to put yourself into or conform to what others in the environment around you are, because people recognize fake, right? Air quote fake. So be yourself. Yourself is going to be great. And, don't be afraid to take on and try new things. Take those risks. I was risk adverse when I was young, and I didn't want to fail. But now where I'm at, I'm not afraid to try new things. I'm okay and open to taking the risk. I'm not afraid to fail any longer. But I say, you can't take back words, you need to choose your words wisely. So I would give that as advice, to my younger self. And it's okay to let go. It's really okay to take that time and take things one day at a time. And also, people don't like rejection. I didn't like it in my 20s. I knew everything, right? I knew everything when I was 20. Everybody else didn't know stuff, right?
Right.
But rejection is sometimes redirection, in my opinion. And it's hard work, but remember to take breaks. And I'm actually in that space even now as we speak, to be able to say to myself, whoa, we're going at a pace. I need to take a break. I need to slow down. And it not being okay is okay. Being positive is great, but it's also okay to be in a bad mood. From time to time, just don't live there. And my other advice would be just, again, be kind to others and yourself, and take more bubble baths.
What would when you're going back to your time at Girl Scouts, or just that point in your career, for someone who's interested in the nonprofit, not-for-profit world, is it to get to the level where you are? I mean, you're obviously, very talented. I think anybody can hear from talking to you that, you are thoughtful in how you approach other people, thoughtful in how you approach the work that you're doing. And I can speak firsthand that you have a work ethic like none rarely have I seen, right? I mean, you get after it. To get to where you have been in nonprofit world, is that primarily climbing I don't know, I'll start with Girl Scouts, but not to focus specifically on that. It's more of a broader question. But is that through getting into an organization, climbing the ranks? Is that through jumping from place to place? I guess let me ask my question a little bit more directly. Is it any different than the private sector, or is growing in the nonprofit world any different than it would be in like a traditional private sector, whether you go up the ranks or side to side moving companies?
Yeah, I mean, I've never worked in that space. My life has been, other than my 16, 17-year-old job working in a fast food restaurant, I came straight out of school into nonprofits. And I think really because nonprofits do make a difference, and that's for who I am, that I want to be with people who are like-minded and work together for a common cause and make that difference through their mission. And bringing people together for purpose. I think that's important. But to answer your question, I do believe that it's just you climb the ranks. And by the work you do, I was able to climb those ranks relatively quickly, from delivering mail back in the day when you had a little mail cart and you went office to office, and I would ask people, what's your job? What do you do? And really, they would sit down with me and they would talk to me and tell me about the work they're doing. And then I would start to formulate, wow, I like that, or I don't like that, or I'm not so sure about that. And I just climbed the ladder, if you will, through showing my abilities and the work product, but also by showing interest. I would ask. If you don't ask, you're not going to get. So when I knew someone left, and I thought that might be for me, I would ask and I would say, do you think that my work reflects the kind of person you're looking for in that role? So I learned that pretty early on too. Again, I think too, my original boss, Jean, she would tell me, go after what you want. And my mom told me, go after what you want. And if you don't get it, it's because you didn't ask. And so I don't know about the corporate world as much, because I know it could be probably very hard to compete. But yeah, you have to ask. And for me, it's been, I've just climbed the ranks. Now, coming to the National Kidney Foundation was a little bit different in that the CEO of Girl Scouts was already at the National Kidney Foundation, and she recruited me in to come work with her as the vice president of mission advancement, with her idea of she was going to retire and wanted me to take the reins. And so it just naturally then became less of a need to ask, because I had already demonstrated. And the goal was, when I came there, that there was something next for me. So, and then thankfully, you remember Paul Grill. Yeah. He recommended that I become the executive director here. So,
Well, you hit on another key. I feel like you're just dropping gems all over the place and not realizing it. Like, you hit on another key thing there, which is like the work that you had done previously set you up to have a future opportunity. Making sure not burning bridges, building relationships, demonstrating work throughout the way, so that when an opportunity does come, you've already set yourself up positioned yourself well, I should say, for the opportunity. So
again, I don't think you woke up when you were in your, young age of a career. It said, I'm going to own my own company or whatever. These things happen and you have to be aggressive, but being aggressive doesn't mean being unkind. It doesn't mean being cutthroat. And for me, what I hear from some in the corporate realm is that it could be maybe cutthroat at times. And I don't know if I would ever survive in that kind of environment. But for me, the core of who I am is doing my best to make a difference in the community that I'm working, in. So I don't know.
I love it. Is there anything that you remember? This is, I get different, obviously, reactions and responses to this question, but is there anything that you remember? Was there like a specific time or one or two specific times that you remember where, I'm trying to think of value for our audience, right? Where like you did something or you left a meeting or a conversation didn't go away that you thought it would go and you're like, oh God, I really screwed that up. If I could do that again, I would have done X.
Yeah, I think, sometimes when you doubt yourself, right, walking into a meeting, that can set a tone. And so in my earlier fundraising years, I never set myself up to be a fundraiser either. We can thank my friend Maria Darby, our friend Maria Darby, for that. When she worked at Girl Scouts, she was our direct fundraiser there. And I had to go on meetings with her to talk about the programs that we were doing and the funders. And so when I had to do that on my own, I felt like sometimes I walked away like, oh man, if I would have just said this, this, and this, they would have said yes. And so some of those no's that I got, hit me hard because I'm like, man, I may not have said really what I needed to say to convince them that their dollars of an investment to help Girl Scouts or kidney patients was missed, because you kind of get choked up or whatever. So, but then I learned the confidence through having a great mentor like Maria to talk about it. And there would be times I'd say to her, girl, why are you talking about our program like this? We can't do that, And so you learn to she's like, but it sounded really good, And I'm like, yeah, but we just can't do that, And so building that confidence helped. But yeah, there have been many a times that I felt that it could have went better if I would have said this, that, or the other. But then I recover. You have an opportunity to follow up and thank them and say, hey, perhaps I need to share a little bit more with you if you have time. You just try to recover.
Yep. Yep. Let's talk a little bit more, a little bit about NKF, because there's a National Kidney Month was March, right? Just wrapped up.
Yeah.
So let's talk about any events that you guys have had so far this year that were successes in your eyes or moving forward. I know you guys have a big event coming up in May, Santi.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about some of the events that you guys have or have coming up.
Yeah. So the National Kidney Foundation's fiscal year starts April 1st. So we just closed the books on our FY24 and we've now stepped into FY25. And that's a little confusion for people at times, but National Kidney Month went very well for us. We had some fundraisers that we call the DIY, do-it-yourself restaurant nights and things like that, where that's an easy lift on our staff. So that's always helpful, and we do multiple of those throughout the year. National Kidney Month as well. We offer, patient programming, professional programming. So we had a wonderful event at Essex, CCBC Essex Community College that's called Beyond Dialysis. And our medical advisory board put together these tracks based on interest from the patients themselves, things like mental health. Sure, they want to know about transplantation and dialysis and, all those kinds of good things. But, just to be able to really think about what is their most urgent need, and mental health rose to the top. So we had a great presenter for that. So that event was very successful. We're now with April, it's Donate Life Month. So we're into activities around that, whether it's flag raisins that we're participating in with the various hospitals, or working with a support group, Trio, that has support group for anyone that's received a donation or, the recipient of any organ, heart, liver, kidney. Kidney's the majority of it for that group. But we had one of our doctors speak about that for National Kidney Month, so that was great. But now the big thing that's coming up are kidney walks, and Sante is our featured event every year. So the end of the month, April 28th, we have a kidney walk in Southern Delaware at Cape Henlopen. That's a fabulous event. Then June 2nd, we have one in Salisbury, Maryland. Then October 6th, we have our Maryland Kidney Walk that is at UMBC. And then in Northern Delaware at I think it's Glasgow Park. I think it's going to be the 3rd or the 4th Sunday of the month. So more to come. If you want to find out more about our kidney walks, just go to kidneywalk.org and put your zip code in or look up the area because we do cover 2 states. And you'll find more information of how you can form a corporate team, a family team, or donate. And it's a fun thing. But I find that Sante, Giving Back for Kidney Disease, is a fabulous event. And that is like seriously a month from today. So it's our Baltimore or our Maryland area's premier food and beverage event. So it will be Wednesday, May the 8th from 6:30 to 9:30 at the beautiful Baltimore Museum of Industry in downtown Baltimore on the waterfront. So it's a business casual event, tastings from a variety of restaurants and caterers paired with really great enticing beverages. So you can find anybody such as Union Craft Brewing, to Sagamore, to Sandy Bottom Cocktails, to the Classic Catering people, to the Atlas Group, to Borey Vineyards. I mean, the list goes on. Log Cabin. This year we have this new thing, more Crunch pretzels. I'm excited to try that. Natasha Brittle. I mean, I like to eat, right? But then also adding to all of that fun, we do an awards competition for the restaurants, the vendors. We have a photo booth and raffles and silent auction featuring all kinds of great things, spa and health fitness to vacation packages to sports memorabilia. You name it, we've got it. May 8th. You don't want to miss that. So you can go to kidney.org /Maryland and it'll take you to our page where you'll see it on that page that you can click to register.
Perfect. And we'll link that up in the show notes too. And I haven't been to that Sante event, but I've heard that it's fantastic. I mean, I've heard great things about it. So
you don't want to miss it. 320 some people were there last year. So McCormick is there as well. Great swag bags. You don't want to miss it. Fun times.
Yeah, we will link that up. And the kidney walk is also, I just want to add this little plug, is a great event for the family also. So whether it's individuals or families, we've done that the past several years with, and we have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old. So we bring our kids, they do the walk, they fundraise their own money, right? I mean, it's not, they're not moving mountains with it necessarily, but they're doing their own fundraising. It's a great way to get, in my opinion, kids active in the community and involved. And it's an easy way for them to, donate their time to help give back to others, even at a young age. Yeah.
Such a great way to role model that you instill that in your children at a young age to volunteer. My tagline I use through Girl Scouts of now is giving of your time, talents, and treasures. Mm-hmm. And so that can be all three. It could be any combination. It could be one. But I used to talk about that with Girl Scouts a lot, of getting kids acclimated. And so their service projects did great things. And I sit in awe and say, man, like these kids, they're 17, 16, wow, they're going to be powerful. Mm-hmm. But thank you for doing that. And Alderson Loop has been an amazing sponsor of the Kidney Walk for Maryland for years now. We are very grateful to you for that.
Thank you. So you guys do a fantastic job with it. So thank you. Is there anything else? I have one last question for you, and then we're going to get to rapid fire, which is unrelated to anything that we've talked about so far. Is there anything else that you want to touch on or say that we haven't yet talked about?
I think I'd just like to expound upon, you had asked a question in this taping about the professional mentors, if you had any, or are you going to bring that up? Because I just want to touch on that a minute.
No, let's talk about it. Go ahead. I wasn't sure if that was the woman that you had referenced earlier, but if there's other ones that come to mind, definitely share.
Yeah, it is. But I think that for me, again, not just because my mom has passed, but when you reflect on your life and you think about your environment, I always think you are a product of your environment. So if you have great people that love you and support you, that's important. And so for me, first and foremost, always, my mom was just a pretty special gal. She was in law enforcement. She knew karate and all that kind of stuff at a time that women were not present in that kind of work. And so, looking at that, I think about the fact that my mom taught me so much from our beginning conversations that I feel she was my first true mentor. And even though she was clear, I'm your mother, not your friend, until I got married and moved out, we became probably more friendly, like, right? So, I just think that you need to think about who you're surrounding yourself with. And of course, Jean, along with many of the women at Executive Alliance, I felt like I grew up learning and growing, through that. So there are so many women that I've had the honor to work with and to be seen as a leader, that I really think that getting to be part of some of these community groups to grow your network is extremely important. So Executive Alliance, and whether it's Leadership Baltimore County or Baltimore City or Howard County, Harford County, Carroll, they all have them. And so that's how I grew my network of true professional mentors, was doing that type of thing. So I really think that Tracy Barnett, who was the CEO from Girl Scouts, again, became a wonderful role model and coach for me. And she's now retired, and we're still, friends, and we communicate, not as much as I would like to anymore. She's in Ohio now doing her own thing. But I do think that when you align with people and they see your value and see that you are sometimes lifting them up too, right, to really showcase their abilities, I just think it's important that women recognize their environment and that they're sucking in that good stuff.
Well, and you touched on it there. I mean, the advocacy for, I always think of it as having an advocate, being an advocate for one another, a champion for one another. I mean, how and it sounds like you've had it at different points in your career, but when you're talking about these other groups and communities where you really feel almost like and I'll use a sisterhood in the example, right? But, and men too in that one, right? But, in some cases, but how important has it been to feel like you have an advocate or a champion of other supporters for you?
That has been critical. And at a time at the National Kidney Foundation where we're going through some leadership changes, for example, my current boss, who hasn't been my boss but since like January, thankfully I knew her. I should say manager, probably sounds like boss, but I feel like she, even though we knew one another, she wasn't managing me, but now she is. And she is like stepping up and sharing her voice to a point that sometimes maybe it's not so good for her, right? But she's not afraid to lean in and to really like speak justice and what's the truth, right? So when you have people like that, you better hold them tight, and you better appreciate that, no matter your age or where you're at in your career, we all need that sisterhood, if you will. I like that. And it just, at different points in my career, as you were asking that question, people were flashing into my head, So I just think that is so critical to have someone that is advocating for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's tremendous. I think it helps build your confidence and belief in yourself even further. So,
yeah.
My last question for you before we get to rapid fire: how do you define success?
Oh boy, success comes in like so many different ways, right? It could be something small, it could be something big. Maybe you closed a $50,000 fundraising deal, or maybe you just got through an event that was very, stressful. So, I think that, people define success in different ways. And a lot of times it's in terms of those material possessions, while others might define it as personal growth and development. Some people prioritize their career or their professional achievements, while others might look at their relationships or personal well-being. But success for me is that I don't have regrets. Um, you know, that I've lived my life the way I want it to be yesterday, today, tomorrow. I feel great about where I have been, where I'm at. I feel good about tomorrow. And I know that tomorrow is going to be equally a treasure for me. And so I just try. I have good days and bad days just like everyone else. But what I find is if I really go back to my core and center myself and think about it, I have an amazing life. I have an amazing husband who was my high school sweetheart. We've been married for 41 years come July.
Congratulations. That's special.
43 years that we've been together. And yes, I'm only 25, but don't do the math. But he's an amazing man. We've grown up together and toward one another, and we know how to balance the relationship. So I think I'm blessed all the way around, personally and professionally.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. 41 years. Congratulations. That's an accomplishment within itself. That's wonderful.
There's that success, right?
Yeah, right. Well, not to let me now. I pull the string. I want to ask one more question tied to that. Then I will get to rapid fire. You are a ambitious woman, an accomplished woman, right? In 41 years of marriage, the blending of that, just what, and not necessarily giving marital advice, but relationship, work, integration. What would be your guidance based on your experience for that?
Well, one thing is we don't have children. So I was never able to have children. So I know that's different for others who are married, whether it's a year or 40 years. People have kids and kids take you down a whole different course in life. So I can only speak to the fact that my work is like my children, right? Like, especially when I worked at Girl Scouts. So I think it's just important that you communicate. And that expectations are set. So my husband makes it a point at night after dinner to sit in the family room and either talk or watch TV with me, or whatever it might be. I don't feel sometimes that I give him the attention that I need to give him, but he takes it all with grace, and he understands my compassion. And so when I was honored to get this award, of course, he gave me flowers, and the card he gave me was, I know that your heart is basically in all of this, and that you are, really you work hard for the organization that you're at, and, all this kind of mushy stuff. And so, it's the little things. I think sometimes you just need to stop and say, I'm really not paying attention to myself or my relationship, personally or professionally. You might say, I'm going through the motions of getting the work done, but I'm not engaging with people like I should. Or I'm not jumping right into a conversation about work when I get on a Zoom with team members or people. Hey, how you doing? What's going on? Trying to get to know them. I think it's all about balance. And I feel a little hypocritical to say that because I know the truth. I know it's about balance, and I know it's about hard work. And it's been really hard lately because we're a little understaffed and got a lot of stuff going on. So I've had to step back and say to myself, you know what, you need to, again, be true to yourself, and you need to make sure that you're doing that balance that's necessary. So self-talk, that's also important. And, again, just communication and setting expectations, I think are key.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Let's get to rapid fire here. This is 6 questions unrelated to anything that we talked about. Just first thing that comes to mind on the options, on the answers. So
try my best.
All right. Brick or stone?
Brick.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Beach or mountain?
Beach.
Astronaut or deep sea diver?
Deep sea diver.
Drive or fly?
Drive.
And last one, movie theater or watch it at home?
Watch it at home.
All right, that's it.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much, Pattie, for being a guest on this. It was wonderful talking with you and learning more about your background. And I think that you're doing such a fantastic job, and the work that you do with the Kidney Foundation is so important. So,
yeah, it's been a pleasure and an honor to do this with you, Lauren. Thank you so much.
absolutely. Again, my guest today was Patricia Dash. I call her Pattie, but the executive director at the National Kidney Foundation, serving Maryland and Delaware. And that is it for this episode of the Lauren Asghari podcast, How Did Her Career Get There? Thank you so much. See you next time.
Yeah.
Let's talk a bunch of different topics.
How did her career get there?
This is a podcast with Lauren Asghari.